All right. I think we can start off. Uh, Guys, thanks again for joining us today. But I think I'll be covering the first couple of minutes of the webinar. Then we're going to get in to speak to Alice about surefire ways to increase sales. And then we're going to have a Q&A round later. Alice, let me just share my screen. And please let me know if you can see my screen. Yeah? Can you
Yes,
see my
I
screen,
can.
Alice? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Guys, again, thanks a lot for joining us today. Taking your time off from a busy weekdays to be with us. We're here to talk about an important topic that's celebrating women in sales. At Vtiger, we believe that women need to be represented more in sales teams around the globe. And I've personally worked with them, and I can vouch that women can be great sales leaders, bringing in a different kind of a viewpoint to solve a lot of complex issues that a modern sales organization faces. And to prove that women can be great sales leaders, we're teaming up with people like Alice Kemper, who's going to talk about her sales journey and also is going to impart insights that will help all of us become sales professionals. Um, Now, Alice, she's an absolute delight. Like, I reached out cold to her and she was so responsive, even though she was actually recovering from a pretty bad injury. Alice, thanks a lot for coming and being with us today.
Thank you. I've listened to several of your webinars and you're really good. You bring a lot of talent and you really are a good leader of the sessions as well. So thanks for having me here.
That means a lot. So guys, now Alice comes with over 35 years of experience in sales training. Now that's a lot. Probably lot more than a lot of people of their age. So, she basically works with companies across different industries and sizes, and when she really works with them, she delivers results. So historically, she's delivered results between 5 and 35%. And what Alice is known for is her 30 minutes or less sales training meetings, which are tailored for sales managers who are time constrained, so that they can actually nurture their sales reps to perform better. So she's an ideal person to actually talk about the certain topic today. Alice, would you like to add anything to this?
No, you've done great. Thank you.
Okay. Now, this is how the webinar is going to flow. We're going to have a brief on Vtiger for people who are new here. After that, Alice and I are going to talk about surefire ways to increase sales by 3x in 3 weeks. And after that, we're going to have a Q&A session, and we're going to have a special giveaway as well. So for people who are new here, I'll just take a couple of minutes to talk about Vtiger and why we're actually doing this webinar. So Vtiger was founded back in 2004, and we've been adding value to the sales community ever since. We launched the open source CRM, and at the moment, we are the world's #1 open source CRM with over 5 million downloads. And about 9 years ago, we decided that we could add much more value to our customers by switching to the cloud model. And that's when we shifted to the cloud. And right now, we've got 3 offices globally and over 300,000 happy users. In addition to that, we've been innovating on the product, and the awards speak for themselves. We've been recognized by Gartner Peer Insights for Salesforce Automation 3 consecutive years in a row. Now that's a big win. I think I need to thank everybody out there, the community who's actually supported us over the past 15 years, through webinars, it could be through using our product, or just collaborating to our discussions altogether. We've been awarded as a leader by G2 Cloud in the all-in-one category as well. We are in the Magic Quadrant this year, so we've been recognized as a niche player. Again, thanks a lot. And that's about it. That's the whole thing. We'd like to get right to the point. So Alice, you can start off.
That was impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Go ahead.
So Alice, now when I was doing research about increasing sales, that's when I stumbled upon your blogs, and that's when I decided to reach out to you, because when I went through your content on different ways you can actually increase revenue, your insights stood out as unique. So I'm very curious. So what's up with all of these tactics that we can use to increase sales? What are these surefire ways?
What are the surefire ways? It's interesting. Managers call all the time, and the good news is sometimes their sales are good and they want them to be better. But I have to say, the majority of the time when people call a sales training solution, they're calling because sales aren't exactly where they want to be.
Yeah.
And so through my experience, I started out as a school teacher. And really, and that had a lot to do with my success, believe it or not. And then I went into sales and sales management, and I found, I had to be successful. And so I took a look at, what did I do to be successful? And then I continued to incorporate that. So when managers call and say, I need help, and really, I really found that it was really very simple. There are 3 surefire ways. That's it. And any manager that listens to me and does follow these ends up with the results that they want. And a good example is Zach was running a small sales team. He had just been promoted from sales manager. He was a sales rep in a craft brewery group, 7 salespeople. They weren't making target. They were about in the 80% range of target. And they knighted him sales manager, and he called me, what am I going to do? How do I do this? And I said, if you do these 3 things, then you're going to make it. And he immediately implemented them, and he became, in 3 months' time, they were 107% of target. So the 3 secrets, and I'm giving, the 3 magic sauce to making it happen is, 1 is field rides. If you have an outside field sales team, if you have an inside team, it's the same thing. It's telephone monitoring, and that's the equivalent. The second is one-on-one coaching sessions and ongoing on a regular basis. And the third is bite-sized mini training. And what I found was in sales, doctors, lawyers, musicians, any profession that you look at, they rehearse, practice, train on a continuous basis. You would never have a sports team win a championship and need to go to win a regional and need to go to a divisional championship in 2 weeks and say, okay, team, I'll meet you there in 2 weeks, see you. They would bring them in, they do mini drills, training every single day. Yet the salespeople, we say, here's your territory. Go out and get them, Tiger. So adding those 3 things, the ride-alongs, the monitoring, the coaching, and bite-sized sales training. And you do that, and you really, you're going to be meeting and exceeding quotas.
So you're saying that actually work closely with the sales team rather than asking them about the numbers at the end of the year or the end of the quarter?
Yeah.
And I think it makes sense. I think you brought a really good analogy about how sports coaches do that. They're out there waking up at 5 a.m., training with the team, and actually grinding it through. So now I think a lot of sales managers out there train their sales reps, right? Or they believe they're training them. So what do you think is the right way to do this?
Well, the right way is to, it can take each one, is each salesperson, that's why there's 3 components. When you do the bite-sized sales training, mini training on a regular basis, you're using your whole group, and there's team synergy, and they're learning from each other. Because let's just say, I'm going to use the example, if you're working through, you use your 30 minutes or less to work through objections. Okay, so you ask the group, what are your common objections, and everybody. So you're only working on what's important to your team, and we have some exercises they work through. So the veteran, the senior, the top-notch salespeople get to share their expertise, and it works both ways. But that's in a group setting. But yet you've got A, B, C, and D players out there selling. You've got your top tier, your middle tier, and your lower tier. So they're different. So that's why in the ride-alongs, when you're riding along, you are seeing it in action. You're seeing exactly what they're doing. Because when somebody comes into the office and says, oh, I saw this client today, this is what they said, this is what I said, you're really not getting the whole story because you don't have the facial expressions, and people do leave parts out. So when you field ride with them, you're actually seeing it in action. And you can see and feel, you are another set of eyes and ears. to the sales rep. Your job is not to take over the sales call. That's not what you're there for. You're there to support them. You're there for them to lead them. So what do? So before you get out of the car, before they pick up the phone to call the customer, you go over what's the plan, what's the objective, what do you want to accomplish, what should I be looking for, and how do you plan to accomplish that? So a lot goes into preparation. And then you'll observe the conversation, and the only time I recommend that a sales manager really talk is if the conversation, they start getting into a tangent, and you can really see the customer losing it, and the sales rep isn't seeing that, then the sales manager's job is to say, oh, by the way, and ask a question, not talk, but ask a question to bring it back. But back to how do you do that on the coach on the ride along, or how you find it, you observe a couple of conversations and you'll see several things that could be improved. And as a manager, often you're going to see a lot of things that can be improved. But I recommend for managers to pick 1, 2 at the most actions that a salesperson can take that would make the biggest difference. Because if they give a sales representative, you did this wrong, this wrong, this wrong, you could have done this, you could have done that, you're going to lose, the sales rep's going to tune out, and they're not going to listen to you, and nothing's going to change.
Makes sense.
So that's one way.
Yeah, I think there's something that I'm curious about. Now, as a sales manager, you might have a couple of sales reps reporting into you, at which time, in such a situation, you have the time to go on field rides with them. But I've been in teams where tens of sales reps report into the sales manager. So how does the sales manager balance all of this?
Well, I still feel that every salesperson wants to be valued, and people do want to be coached. People do want to learn. That's why we read. That's why we're attending webinars like this. Today, it is more important than ever to take responsibility for your own growth. If you wait for your company to do it, it's you're losing out on your earning potential and your personal development.
Makes sense.
So how do you do a large team? Basically, that's why I say I like your top tier, whether it's A, B, C, D players, but your top tier, your middle tier, your bottom tier. Your top tier, you're going to field ride or coach, be in person the least with.
Yeah.
However, if you don't meet with them at all, you're not being responsible to them and their development. Yeah. So I'll ride with a top tier maybe once a quarter.
Got it.
Twice a year. But if you don't ride with them at all, they're going to say, they must not like me. What's the matter? They're not riding with me.
Yeah.
Your middle tier is the tier that, because if you ride with your A players, your top tier, they're going to go up a notch, and that's who you go to all the time for more dollars anyway. You can count on them. Your middle tier wants to be the top tier, but they don't know what they don't know. So when you coach them, whether it's the field rides, whether it's the one-on-one, and that's why you've got the field rides and the one-on-one coaching, because if you can't field ride with them, you can one-on-one coach with them. But you want to pay a lot of attention to the middle tier because you can up-level them very quickly. Now, the bottom tier, a lot of books, Jack Welch was very famous for this, get rid of your bottom tier. I'm not a believer in that. You hired them because somebody believed in them and saw potential in them. So you do want to invest time in them, but do determine very quickly whether they are capable of up-leveling or not. If they're not, then yes, let them go. But if they are, the bottom tier can move to the middle tier. They'll move slower generally up to the top tier, but they have potential.
Okay.
So spread it out. Your top tier the least amount of times. Get to your middle tier right away. Get to your bottom tier. Spend more time with them initially, and then decide if if it's career redirection time, you're coachable. But the one-on-one coaching, the same thing. Then your bottom tier, I would coach them once a week. And you're talking a 15, 30-minute conversation.
Okay.
And if you can't do that, even with a big team, you've got to prioritize, because your title is sales manager. Your job is to manage the sales, and the only way you're going to get the sales is through your salespeople.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Hello. So if you're spending all your time in meetings and letting your salespeople go forth thou and do and cross your fingers, you're going to get exactly what you currently have.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, I've got another curveball for you. So now, when you have field meetings, it's quite easy to tag along. It's probably a fun ride. But now a lot of teams, especially in software companies, are inside sales, where most conversations happen over Skype, and it's through phone calls. And what I normally see happening in a lot of these SaaS companies is that the sales manager listens in on the recorded call and then jots down a few notes and then sends it across to the sales rep saying, hey, these are the different areas where you need to improve. Do you think that's an optimal way of doing it?
That's you're mirroring being in the field in the same room, the same thing. One of the things that I like to do, especially, you have a different advantage. When I'm live out at a customer's, we don't have a camera to do a replay. Okay, so I'm, as the manager, saying, here's the key points that I saw, but you really have a really optimal opportunity if you can record. Now, often in this situation, are they recording the Skype conversation?
Yes, more often than not they are.
Okay, so what I like to do about that is like to replay it.
Got it.
Use that so that before the manager says a word, you have some key questions, and whatever's important. If you have a sales process, the sales process starts with the launch of the conversation, the questions, presentations, objections, and close. So you can have a nice check sheet, and the sales rep would watch the replay again, the manager would watch it, and you take notes. How did I do on the launch? Did I state benefit statements? You have all the key points of my interview questions, my discovery. Did I ask today, tomorrow, risk and reward? So you replay it, you have a little check sheet, sales rep fills in the check sheet, and the sales manager fills in the check sheet. Now together, you've heard the same thing, you've both done it, and then the sales rep can say, okay, looking at my check sheet, I really only asked 2 questions in the discovery, and I jumped to the sales the presentation. So you have a really nice, unique advantage to the coaching opportunity doing it through Skype and recording it.
That makes sense. So I've got another question. So this used to happen when I used to ride with my sales manager. He used to hijack the conversation, and I'm like, dude, you're stealing my show. I have spent so much time developing a relationship with this customer, and all of a sudden you've got somebody much more senior. So how do you think sales managers should handle that?
Yeah, this is selling up. The sales rep has to make a sale to the sales manager, and basically before they go in, they really need, and the sales rep needs to speak up. This is your conversation. This is your call, and have the conversation with the sales manager. I'm grateful that you're with me today. I know I'm going to learn a lot. I know, it's just like a sales call. Set up all the benefits. When it's over, I know you're going to give me good feedback, but here's what I've prepared. Here's what I prepared. Here's my objections. Here's what I planned. Here's the role I'd like you to take. They really have to come into agreement. Please don't hijack my conversation. Maybe you have a signal. A signal. Okay, manager, jump in now, or something. Come up with some agreement. But you have to be upfront with them before you go on to the conversation.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think if your sales reps feel that you're adding a lot of value, as opposed to just hijacking the conversation, I think they're probably going to invite you to a lot of client meetings.
Yeah.
Or they might just come back and speak to the team about how you hijacked the conversation, which is not really good.
Right, and then the other reps aren't going to, they're going to get the flu the day that they're supposed to ride with their sales manager.
Yeah, that's true.
They're calling sick. Oh, can't ride today with you. You have to look at your manager, and if the manager doesn't have a coach mindset, it goes both ways. Salespeople, you can coach your sales manager. And just like you want your sales manager to coach you, but to get what you want, you have to have the conversation.
That makes a lot of sense. So, Alice, there's one thing that I want more clarity on, because a lot of sales managers are attendees today. Now, when you're usually giving feedback to a sales rep, sometimes the ones with the constructive mindset and the growth mindset take it in a good way, but the ones with the fixed mindset might get offended, or they might just have a bad reaction. So this might be jumping out of the agenda of a conversation today, but do you have any pointers that the sales manager should follow when giving feedback so that it's taken in a constructive way?
Right. Okay. And I'll repeat, the biggest mistake I see sales managers do is have 5, 6, 7 things that they want to tell them that they did wrong, or, and no one can personally tolerate that much. It's painful, and you tune out, and then you don't respect and don't want the help. So the biggest thing I suggest for sales managers, there's a few things, but one, just pick the most important thing. You might see that they launched the call poorly, they didn't ask great questions, they ignored an objection, and say to yourself as a sales manager, what's the one thing, if they made one change right now, what would make the biggest difference? So, yeah, the launch is important, but let's just say you said the questions, so just focus on coaching them on better questions. That's how, that makes it easier. The other is that it's collaborative. Okay. So you're not just talking at them, it's like, here's what I observed, not you did all this wrong. How are you going to phrase it? Here's what I observed. I observed that, you really asked 2 questions and we didn't really uncover, how important it was to them, or, what would happen if they didn't do anything. We didn't get that. And so then say, so what's your recommendation? What do you think you could do differently? Or what do you think? So, and also the other, let me back up. I would, before I even coach the sales rep after the conversation, that's why I said with the Zoom call or the Skype call, you have a checklist and you talk. But when you come out of a live live conversation, ask the sales rep, what do they think went well? Where do they think it would be improvement? Let them talk first. Okay. And then if they don't pick up on the same thing, they might pick up something that's more important to work on. Got it. But it's collaborative. And then ask them, what do you need to get better at that? What are some ways? Ask them to come up with a solution on how to improve their skills. Maybe they'll say, I want to role play with you more. Or maybe there's a book I can read on better questions, So it's collaboration. That's important. That makes a lot of sense. I think the collaborative approach is much more better than a top-down approach where you're shoving something down their throat. So Alice, another thing that caught my attention, where you spoke about having one-on-one sessions and meetings. So how often should the sales manager do this, and how should it be done? Can you shed more light on that? Yeah. So I recommend, again, now depending on your team, the size of your team, and their skill level. Okay, so if you can, once a week with everybody. Okay. You get too many salespeople, you can't do that. So then, your A players are probably, you're chatting with them anyway, so they're in the moment coaching sessions, but a real sit down coaching conversation. So then with your top tier, maybe you do that once a month. because you still want to check in with them, because even if they're top tier salespeople, they get into ruts.
Certainly.
And so what we're trying to do is prevent plateaus, prevent ruts.
Got it.
And so that, and then it depends whatever you're working on. So if you're working on a sales rep at the end and you collaborate and say, okay, I'm going to work on better questions. Okay, maybe you decide, so when's the best time for me to ride with you again? The sales rep might say, give me 2 weeks on my own to work on this, and then we'll set up the ride, or let's have another one-on-one. So
Okay.
at the end of every conversation, every coaching call, you determine what's the appropriate timing to get back to reconnect on what we've been talking about.
That makes a lot of sense. And how do you think the coaching session should look? Because in the past, what I've seen is usually coaching sessions are reviews for the numbers that you hit over the past week or the past month. Is that how good sales meetings are done?
The good coaching, no, because then every week it's, what'd you sell for me this week? Okay,
Exactly.
that's not that you're coaching. It's the same thing that the baseball first baseman, wasn't catching well. You don't bring them in and say, okay, did you catch well this week? You go, you'd say, I watched 5 of your videos, or it's all, your sales rep is your customer. So you put together a coaching session just like a sales call. How do you want to launch it? Well, I want to launch it probably with something positive that I've noticed. Okay, even if I have some bad news, I've noticed that you sent out 5 thank you notes to clients this week, whatever it is. Okay, and then you ask them questions. We were working on this before. What do you think? But it's not always about the numbers. It's very important to find out why are they working there? Even your very first, if you haven't been coaching or having one-on-ones and you say, okay, come in, we're going to have a one-on-one, they think it's like going to the principal's office at school, And so basically to start out is, help me out. What do you like about your sales job? What are your challenges? What do you want from me? How can I help you? It's a total different conversation. And then you're building the person. You're not just focusing on the numbers. Because I don't know if you saw the movie, Field of Dreams, Build It and They'll Come. He built a baseball field in the middle of a corn pasture. And the thing is your numbers will come. If you do the right things on the right conversations, your numbers will come. So don't focus on, well, what'd you sell for me this week?
That makes a lot of sense. And sometimes, sales managers are afraid the meetings would take too much time. Now, and you've spoken so much about having 30-minute meetings. So how does one ensure that they keep it in 30 minutes? And if you could, I don't know, share an agenda that our audience can use, that they can go and implement right away, that would be great.
Right. So let me ask, is there a way after this that you can attach something for your audience?
Yeah, certainly, yes.
Okay. So I will attach a coaching form. But it's the same thing. I have a coaching form. What's my objective of this conversation today? Okay. What's my launch? What's my praise? And what questions am I going to ask?
Okay.
And what questions am I going to ask? One key question to always ask is, what barriers are in the way of you achieving that, whatever they said they wanted? And then when should we reconnect? It's just this. It's the same format as if you're talking to a customer. But I do have a coaching form that they can follow.
That's really good. So in addition to this, Alice, is there anything else that you'd like to add to all of this?
Well, what we didn't talk about was the third one, was the Bitesized Sales Training. Yeah. And again, salesman, everybody's time deprived, and the sales managers, when we first started talking, we ask them to take how much time they're willing to train, or they say, I don't train. I have my sales meeting and I have so much information I have to give out. I don't have time for training. Well, that is really important. And if you can't do field rides and you can't do one-on-one coachings, you need to be spending time training your group. Okay?
Got it.
So the same thing is, that's why we came up with bite-sized training, 30 minutes or less. Some of them are 15, some of them are 10. You know, an example might be is you just bring your sales reps together on Monday, whether it's on phone, however, and you say, okay, here's your challenge for the week. Before you get out of your car or pick up the phone, you have to answer these questions to yourself. What the heck's the objective of this call? How will I know it's successful? What are the questions I'm going to ask to gain that objective? Okay. And you can't pick up the phone until you have answered those questions to yourself, because otherwise you're winging the conversation. And you just challenge your sales reps to do that for 5 days. And at the end of, that takes 5 minutes to explain that. And at the end of 5 days, you have everybody, okay, how did that exercise every day impact your conversations? So mini training works, but always doing something. So that's what happened when I first started out doing live training. And then I saw such god-awful sales meetings. And we said, I was going to write 50 to 60-minute or less sales meetings. And then sales managers started, 60 minutes? I can't take 60 minutes. I said, what can you take? And they said 30 minutes. And I thought, all right, how can I get a good message out and a good skill booster in 30 minutes or less? And, I've built 144 of them now. And that's what I wanted to do. The sales managers, yes, I can ride with your sales reps. I can do your one-on-one coaching, but I really find that's better that sales managers do that. But sales managers don't have the wherewithal or the time to write these, highly impactful, and high payoff sales training, but that I can do. So I did that for the sales managers. And, so I have two, they're yearly. Most sales managers buy a year at a time. And they just wake up and say, I have a sales meeting. They go online, they go to month 1, they pick out week 1, they get their outline. And if you can read, talk, and tell time, you can run this 30-minute or less sales meeting. And salespeople they're so relevant and they're so timely that they can implement the information on their very next sales conversation. So I think I mentioned, I also have an offer for your audience today. Because you do such great work for your audience, and so I'm offering a year at half price. So that's great, and they just go to the website and put in the promo code podcast. Their discount will come up.
Let me try and share my screen because the discount code is up on that. Just give me 1 second, Alice. Can you see my screen?
I can see it.
Okay, just give me 1 second. It's a little all over the place. Yep. So I think as part of the giveaways, we're going to give a sales manager weekly checklist as well.
Weekly checklist also, and I'll do a coaching form.
Yes. And in addition to that, we have the Getting Started guide. Alice spoke about all of this, and one way to get started is actually to go to salestrainingworks.com and take a look at the 52 bite-sized curations that she's had, and she's giving $189 off. I think that's a great tool.
The coffee and donuts are going to cost more than that.
Yes, they are. What I like the most about it, Alice, is you've done it according to a timeline, right? It's month 1, what are you supposed to do, and it goes on. And I think it's just like a workout plan where you start off easy and then you increase the intensity as you go. So on the first day, you're not expecting them to bench press 100 kilos. You're saying take it easy, lift the dumbbell first, and then we can get to the bench press later. So I think that really helps. And having that organized plan ensures that they touch base on all the different aspects of the sales training. So I've got another question, and this is from my personal experience of training salespeople. When I usually train, there's a lot of good knowledge out there. What I find hard is actually to go ahead and incentivize them to actually use all of this training. So what do you think, in your experience, is a great way to incentivize these sales reps and to motivate them? Because in a sales team, you've got proactive ones, you've got ones who want to climb the ladder and become a CEO of a company, and you also got sales reps who are happy where they are. So how do you get them into a group and motivate them to actually adhere to the training that you've given them?
Well, and that, you know what, the answer to that is repetition and ongoing. If you do training, and here's the difference, because I call it the big guns training, when we go out live and train, and here's my example. You cannot engage with us, you can't contract with us for us to come in one time. You won't get results. And I'm not putting my name on that. You have to sign in blood that you know that you're not going to get results for me to come in one time. So clients engage with us for 3 months. We might start off with a big 2-day training, but then we're once a week for 90 minutes for 8 weeks. And in 10 weeks' time, the behaviors have been modified. They are the new right habits.
Got it.
So that's your answer. You don't have to give them money to do it. You don't have to give them dinners out to do it, to use it. That's the whole purpose of the 30 minutes also. When you do something with your reps every single week, you are building that new right habit, or you're cleaning the cobwebs out. So, I do a lot of training sales, and your top tier people say, I used to ask really good in-depth questions, and now I take shortcuts. So just a 30-minute meeting on better questions gets them saying, not doing that anymore. Boom, they're doing it again. Okay. So it's ongoing repetition, and that builds the performance level of your salespeople. So I don't feel I have to incentivize them, but then you have to look. If your bottom tier never does anything, then it's career redirection time.
Certainly, that makes a lot of sense. So Alice, if you have to sum up the whole webinar, and would you want to do that?
Yeah.
Sum it up in a nice bite-size.
It goes back to, if you're a sales manager and you want your sales team meeting quotas consistently, figure out how to do some ride-alongs. And like you said, if you have a big team, then pick some of your middle tier and your bottom tier to move up, okay? And a couple. First of all, I love going out with the top tier because that's where I learn. But do some sort, figure out how to work in some ride-alongs. Start adding more one-on-one coaching sessions where it's not about the numbers.
Yeah.
Okay. It's about what's getting in their way this week from, selling, and sometimes you're going to find out it's their personal life that's getting in the way. So that's important for you to know. And then the third is start incorporating, if not every single week, minimum once a month, preferably twice a month, if not every week, of bite-sized sales training. You do those 3 things, you're going to have a bigger bonus check than you currently have. And that's why you're the sales manager also.
That makes a lot of sense. And another important point you touched on that I think is really important, and this happens to a lot of startups, Alice, is where usually the founder who's been doing sales and seeing some growth hires a sales manager or a sales rep and expects them to come out and really blow things out of the water and get $1 million deals. And the problem I see is that there's a lot of expectation, but they don't have that hands-on coaching that to understand what the sales rep is going through. They rarely get on calls, they rarely go on field meetings. And when that happens, they're distancing themselves away from the sales rep. And at the same time, they're distancing away from what the customer's talking about their product. Right. I think one really good addition for sales managers or whoever is leading a sales team, it could be a founder, it could be the head of revenue of a certain company, that you go and actually interact with customers along with your sales reps, you will know if the sales rep is giving you an excuse or if your product is bad and that actually needs improvement.
Right. How can you can't, you don't, if you're not inspecting, you have no idea. That's why the sink or swim, thank goodness, unfortunately, there's still a lot of companies that just hire sales rep. All right, here's your product, or they'll put them through 5 days of product knowledge and say, go out and sell. They say, I hired salespeople. I hired somebody with sales. Well, wait a minute. You don't know if the way they were selling at their other company is how you want your sales team to go to market.
Yeah.
And you don't know if they handed the leads, already pre-sold. I mean, there's a lot you don't know. Unless you're doing good. That's a whole nother conversation on interviewing.
Yes. Oh, I like that. We should do another webinar on that.
Yeah. But you're right.
I think I just one more question, because you've just opened my mind up to a whole new way to increase sales and engage with your team. So one thing you mentioned is the training process that sales reps go through. More often than not, I see them on a 2-week product training, as you said, and then the sales manager gives a list of objections that the customers have, the value propositions that we need to sell, and then expects them to go and actually sell it. And the question that I have for you now is, how does an ideal training process look like from 30,000 feet, like from in a brief way? Do you think you want to sum it up now?
Well, so when I became a sales manager, I had a 3-week onboard. If you have the luxury, and you can do it several ways. I had a 3-week onboarding program. Okay. I did a startup. Oh, okay. But so further into the startup, a little further into the startup, any new hire rode with the salespeople the first week. Got it. So they rode with another salesperson. Second week and third week, we had 2 weeks of classroom training. Okay. We did product knowledge, pricing, all that kind of stuff. And then the second week was sales training, and we gave them, a sales process, and then we role played every single situation they were going to come into. Okay. And so they were really well equipped. I remember this, and so this one group that I did my advertising sales reps, the new advertising rep comes in and the customer says, oh, it's a perfect opportunity. Oh, new rep, I'm not going to advertise. Every scenario we did in that classroom, the very first day, about 3 hours into the morning, about 11 o'clock, the sales rep called me and he said, I thought you planted all these people in my territory. He got every single objection that we had role played in the practice. Okay. And he was still willing to stay on board. No, he said he was totally prepared for everything and he thanked us. So that's one way. If you don't have the luxury of the field rides for a whole week, if you can, 1 or 2 days. But after product knowledge, you've given them all this product knowledge. What's going to happen is if you don't add the selling skills piece, then they're going to go out and they're going to just do information dump because they're so excited about this stapler, and let me tell you all about it and why you should have it. You didn't give them the transition bridge, and if they didn't have it on their own. So if you have the luxury, put all your salespeople through a sales process, how you want to go to market. If you don't, and then if you don't even have the luxury or you want to do something right now, this is where those 30 minutes come in, the 30-minute meetings, because even though it will take you longer, it's every aspect of the sales conversation. Certainly. So, but yeah, onboarding is a very overlooked, and again, companies, even in 5 days, you can come up with a good, if you had to in 3 days, but you can come up with a good 5-day onboarding program. That makes a lot of sense. So I think we're done here, Alice. Okay. Yeah. So what I'm going to do, guys, right now, I am actually sending you a message with the link to Alice's course. You can just click on that link, head on over, and you can interact with her, and you can buy this. And I think
if I was a sales manager, I would buy this. I'm sold. And she's done a lot of hard work. She's put this together. Again, 35 years of experience in those 52 planned meetings. And please go ahead and sign up. And Alice, so how do you think, if people have questions, how do you think they can reach out to you?
Oh, on LinkedIn is great. Alice Kemper, my name, on LinkedIn is a great way to start, or you can email me directly if, akemper@salestrainingworks.com.
Okay, is it okay if I share the email address with them?
Absolutely.
Just give me 1 second, let me pull that out. Yep.
And if they happen to be Twitter followers, we're at Best Sales Tips.
Okay. I will also probably give a link to your LinkedIn profile so they can add you after the webinar. Yeah. And guys, we're opening up the floor for a few questions. Like, I think I've asked a lot of questions, but if there's anything else that you guys have, please send me a message. Alice will give them a couple of minutes.
Okay.
If they have any questions. Okay. Got a bunch of. Okay, we've got a few people raising their hands. So do you have a question? Okay, we've got the first one. So this is from Madhu. Now, the question is about sales in information technology, in SaaS or in technology space. Does all of the advice that you gave today hold good? Or do we have to change this for the software?
Yeah, no, it's any sales team. I mean, I work with funeral parlors, med device, crop ingredients. I know more about selling potash. So it's you, and I've trained all over the world also. And what we find is sales is universal from country to country, as well as industry to industry.
Sounds perfect. I think we're done here, Alice. That was the only question.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Alice. I'll get in touch with you soon. And we've got one more. Okay. I think we'll just take this offline. Okay, we've got another. So this is the question from Jeevan, and he asks, how do you set the right KPI for your sales person? I think I would modify this question a little bit, because I think revenue is a KPI that I think every sales rep has. So Alice, in addition to revenue, are there any other KPIs that we can set for salespeople so that they keep upgrading themselves and upskilling themselves?
Yeah, I've seen a variety from different companies, so that it's not just revenue based. It's that they attend X amount of educational, seminars a year. And then you can break the revenue down. I've seen someone break the revenue down, number of new contacts, numbers in the pipeline, and that's where that's not universal. Okay. That is very specific to each organization. So here's the thing to think about, the manager that's asking that. What do you need? What are you inspecting? So if you're inspecting pipeline, that's part of the KPI. If you're in closed deals, size of deals, whatever you're inspecting, that's really important for your KPIs.
Got it. And we've got a question from Jose. This is about what's the optimal time for a one-on-one meeting with a sales rep? I think we've got that covered.
Yeah, if at all possible, even though I talk in terms of 30 minutes, if it's all possible, the first one would be an hour. Block an hour. Because if you haven't been doing them, the first one, you really want to get to know them outside of work. What's important to them in their life? Why are they working? We all work to earn a paycheck, but what's that paycheck buying us? it's for one person, it's putting their kids through college. For another person, it's getting a house.
Okay.
For another person, it's getting out of debt. So we want to get to know them first. So if you can, an hour, then the first time 30 minutes, and then each time you're going to know, is this a 15-minute conversation or a 30-minute conversation?
Makes sense. We've got another one from Angelo, and it's about how we can actually leverage tools and these one-on-one meetings to effectively increase their sales. Alice, can I take this question?
Yes.
Yeah. So, Angelo, I think it's a great question that you asked. Now, there are tons of tools out there that basically helps you manage your sales team and nudge them in the right direction. So, like let's just say Vtiger, right? In Vtiger, when you set it up the right way, all the conversations between your sales rep and their customers are recorded, and it's tagged to a certain record. So you can go in. It could be a week later, or it could be a month later, or a year later, and hear the conversation, and also correlate that with how the deal is actually flown through the entire funnel, and if it's closed or not. There are a lot of other metrics like touch points that the sales reps have done with the customer, and that how does that correlate with a win or a loss. Our tools basically help you streamline, manage the process, and capture a lot of data. And the sales manager comes in, and his job is to read that data and figure out the bottlenecks in the sales process, figure out where the sales rep is going wrong. One example would be how my manager coached me. Back in the day, we used to use another CRM, and he figured out that I'm excellent at cold emails, but then when it comes to the email right after the demo, the open rates were quite low, and I wasn't getting the most positive responses. So from that, we figured out that the content on my email should change. And what I did is I went to another A player and took his email template, and then I hit all my targets after that. So without a CRM, that becomes really hard. So the CRM or any of the sales tool that you use is complementary to a sales manager. It helps you save time and keep things in order without breaking a bank. So yeah. And I think Sundar has another question. It's what advice do you have for a sales manager in a new startup?
In a new startup, your onboarding is exceptionally important, and getting your team together weekly, because I don't know how many salespeople you have on your new startup team, person that asked, but I don't care if it's 2 people or 10 people.
Yeah.
In a startup, your company's new in the marketplace, so you want your salespeople to be talking to each other, sharing with you immediately what they're hearing, what objections, what's going well, what's not going well. You want to get on that immediately.
Got it. All right. I think we're done here, Alice.
Okay, this is great.
Yeah, thanks a lot, and I really appreciate you coming on the call, because even though we had the miscommunication at the time, there was a good learning for me. Yeah.
That's great. Yes.
Thank you, Alice.
I'm glad I was watching my email.
Yes, I was. Yeah.
This was great. I hope your audience enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Alice. Have a nice day ahead.
You too. Bye.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.